In this video, we're going to take a brief look at the foundation of good course design, course alignment. What I mean by this is articulating clear objectives and aligning teaching activities and assessments to them. The basic concept is that if you haven't identified where you want to go, how do you know if the path that you're taking is the best one? And how will you and your students know when they've arrived? So the first step is to identify the destinations. These are the course learning objectives. Stating them clearly helps you plot out the map for your course. Alignment ensures that everything you teach and everything the students do in the course keeps them proceeding in the right direction. Ask yourself, by the end of my course, exactly what do I want my students to know or understand or to be able to do? Beginning your course planning like this by focusing on the end is often referred to as backwards design. You start identifying and prioritizing your outcomes, and this helps you to define your learning objectives. Keep in mind that objectives aren't the same thing as what you'll cover in your course. Learning objectives focus on the learners, not the content. And the way that both you and your students know that they've achieved the objectives is by aligned assessments. As you plan your teaching strategy, keep revisiting the objectives to make sure that all the pieces fit with each other. For most of us, course design is an iterative process, so you may find that during the design phase, you need to adjust your objectives. Just be prepared to include your final list on your syllabus so students have them at the start of class. Now, it's important to keep a few things in mind when writing objectives. Consider the students in your class, their prior knowledge and competencies, as well as the course description and the departmental expectations. This will help you keep objectives appropriate and achievable. Objectives should describe accomplishments that can be clearly observed and measured as well. Once the goals are stated, use them as a guide so that all the class activities serves one or more of them. And the assessments too, because when everything is aligned, when you've defined what the students will learn, how they'll learn it, and how you and they will know they've learned it, this not only makes your course design easier, it provides students with a rationale for everything you ask them to do. An interesting study was conducted by the CTL at UC Berkeley. They surveyed hundreds of student evaluations and came up with a list of 9 of the most common complaints. 3 of the complaints relate directly to poor course alignment. Homework is not related to lecture, lectures add little to the text, quizzes, homework, and lectures don't match the exams. When little or no attention is given to course alignment, courses are likely to look more like this. Sometimes objectives haven't been written, or if there are objectives, they're often not referred to in the course design process or integrated into the activities. And sometimes a specific assignment that once seemed like a great idea ends up falling flat because it's not relevant to the objectives or assessments. And many of us remember our frustration when we were students ourselves of taking tests that challenged us on things that we hadn't been taught or skipped over things that we had understood to be very important. Our goal is to help you get to this. And at the foundation of any well-aligned course are objectives that are achievable, appropriate, and measurable. So let's take a look at how to begin writing them and how to recognize a common pitfall. It helps to frame the objective by finishing this sentence, listing several objectives. The potential pitfall I mentioned comes in the form of fuzzy verbs. At first, fuzzy verbs and verb phrases may seem adequate in describing a learning objective, but they are vague and difficult to assess and frequently overreaching. These verbs or verb phrases are sprinkled throughout many first drafts of learning objectives. In contrast, the following list of action verbs is more concrete and clear. When students do these things, we're able to see and evaluate how well they have done them. They are engaged with the material. This is a partial list from Bloom's taxonomy. A link to a more complete list will be provided at the end of the video. Briefly, this is a classification system of learning objectives that were originally proposed by Benjamin Bloom, an education scholar, a little over 50 years ago, and they're still relevant and highly cited today. They identified 3 major domains, but for our purposes, we'll just be looking at the cognitive domain, in which there are 6 levels, moving through the lowest order processes to the highest. Again, a link to this will be provided at the end. Memorization and declarative knowledge of facts, represented on the lower part of the pyramid, are toward the left side, and the upper part of the pyramid, the higher order thinking, procedural knowledge, and problem solving, are toward the right of this list. Now let's take a look at a few learning objectives from some different courses and see how they're improved with revision. Will be aware is a fuzzy, vague, and difficult to measure phrase. A simple rewrite makes it more concrete. Being able to explain something indicates comprehension. From a literature course, comprehensive understanding sounds good, but is it achievable? Does it lend itself to clear assessment? What does it even mean? However, describing the elements of plot and identifying them in literary works indicate both knowledge and comprehension. Assessment falls right into place. We all want our students to learn things, so this one should be more specific. This revision describes both comprehension and analytical thinking. Students know exactly what they can expect to learn. From a contemporary social issues course, once again, a fuzzy verb phrase. And if this topic warrants its own place on the learning objective list, perhaps we should raise the bar a little higher. Asking the students to critique arguments on both sides of the debate demonstrates a depth of knowledge and the ability to think critically. Now let's take this one a little further. We now have a clearly written objective. The next step is to plan instruction and assignments that align with it. And at the end of this assignment, how will the achievement be assessed? 2 short, persuasive essays, one pro and one against. Some faculty find it helpful to use a tool, like this simple planner. Typing or penciling in your objectives and filling in the activities and assessments may help you in brainstorming your course. One last thing, a question that we often get asked is, how many objectives should I have? The answer is that there is no right number. It can vary for every class, but 4 to 7 or so is the usual range. Just remember, aligning your course to clear learning objectives will guide your teaching and will help your students prepare to succeed. To refer to the more complete list of verbs from Bloom's taxonomy and to download the course planning grid shown a moment ago, go to this address and click the link to see more about learning objectives.